I have had quite an afternoon with my computer shutting itself down 3 times. All of the research that I was working on was gone, but I don't want to delay anymore in bringing you this important information. Here it is. The government admits to manipulating hurricanes. Now, for you, my smart, savvy, supportive, sometimes snarky, healthy Americans, that is probably no news to you. You know that weather manipulation has been around for a long time. I have it on record, and I did reclaim this one document, and I'm going to bring it to you. I think it's very, very interesting. And this is actually, I have a couple of documents I want to share with you. And many of you emailed me in the aftermath of this Hurricane Ian, which was just so devastating. And you've seen, again, I had all of these links up here to show you the devastation, but I know you've seen that on YouTube and on the news and on different social media. So it's absolutely just horrible. And my heart goes out to all of those that have lost property, loved ones, that have had to leave, have had to evacuate. They've come back and they've seen all of the destruction. I'm going to answer the question first before we look at the research. And the question people have is, Peggy, why in the world would the government want to do that? Why would the government want to manipulate the weather? Why would the government intentionally seek to harm us? Well, if you've been awake and aware and alert for the last 2.5 years, you know exactly what's going on. You know that the government wants to control us, not only the weather, it wants to control us. And it wants to create and instill a sense of fear and terror and dread, so that when people are uprooted, they are going to experience a hardship, not only emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, socially, economically. People may be losing their jobs because they don't have a place to live now near where they worked. Think about the housing market in Florida. Several weeks ago, I did a video saying, is moving a trap? And I posed the question, and I don't have any evidence for this, but it was a hypothetical question. Do you think people moving to Florida, that could be a trap? That Florida, I'm not saying that the governor is doing this or anything else, but just people in general moving to Florida, and then it becomes ripe for the picking, so to speak. Here in California, California has been, my state, California has been targeted for years. They are destroying it at a breakneck speed because it is beautiful. There are resources. There are so many people here. So when they can destroy a state, it wipes out basically 40 million people in one fell swoop. So the impact of taking down California in terms of how it can destroy the rest of the United States is huge. And it's the same with New York. New York is also very populated. I think it's the second most populated state. Probably Florida is either number 2 or number 3. I need to check my statistics. But it's very, very troubling to me that people fled to Florida from many different states, including California, to find freedom. And yes, hurricanes happen all the time in Florida. But the nature of how destructive this was, and I want to talk to you also about Hurricane Betsy, and that was back in the 1960s, and it also was said to have very erratic behavior. It was one of the first that made the scientists scratch their heads saying, we can't figure out why this hurricane acted the way it did. Well, I'm on the track to figure that out, and I'm sure that you are as well. So many of you said to me, Peggy, please cover this. I want you to talk about Hurricane Ian and any government intervention or manipulation or controlling and so forth. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Let me know in a comment below if you are in Florida, if you fled Florida, if you are in South Carolina, if you are being affected by this hurricane. I have many, 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 many lovely, healthy American friends that live in Florida, more and more because they're moving there. And I just want to send my prayers for your comfort, for your courage as you get through all of this. I also want to say that another reason why the government would do this is that not only are they instilling fear, uncertainty, the economic devastation, but think about just the nuts and bolts of it. Okay, so the housing market started to slow in Florida. So now there are going to be people scrambling to rent or buy or move. So it seems to me that we are going to be seeing a rebound in the housing market. I could be wrong. What say you? The other thing that I'm noticing is the increases in homeowners insurance, in flood insurance, in car insurance, boat insurance, all of those things that people have already told me are higher in Florida than in other places because of the propensity for storms. The other thing that I see and that I lived through when I was in New Orleans in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina is the federal government control. So FEMA is going to be in there. They're going to be setting up FEMA camps. People are going to be getting federal relief money, and I think they should. Don't get me wrong. All of that can be a boon. I actually stayed in a FEMA camp. I did some videos about that previously when I flew from California to New Orleans to help in the animal rescue operations because so many animals were left behind. And when I see devastation in these videos now in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, really my heart goes out to the animals because they're innocent, they're often left behind. Sometimes the people aren't able to find their animals and get them in the car. I personally, and I'm sure you're just like me, you would never leave your animals behind. They are your family members. So I look at that, I look at the flooding and not just pets, but all of the, wildlife and all of the destruction that was heaped upon them. So there are so many reasons why the government might want to control and manipulate these storms. But don't just take my word for it or my opinion. Now we're going to actually dive in to the facts and the evidence. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to find all of this that got deleted. Okay, here's what I want to do. I'm going to take you right on over and you are going to see a document. Well, let me take you right on over and we'll take a look there. And here we go. We're hopping right on over, and this is the Comptroller General of the United States. This is a document in 1972. It's a response to an inquiry made by a senator, Senator Schweiker. And it says, this is in response to your request of September 22nd. So think about that. How many years ago is that? 1971, about 50 years ago, for certain background information on cloud seeding activities carried out in the United States under programs supported by federal agencies. And I'm going to show you a second document that is very, very compelling. But here I wanted to direct you where he is saying, yes, indeed, we have had federal agencies involved in cloud seeding and on the types of chemicals used for their seeding and their effect on the environment. We also obtained data concerning the extent of cloud seeding conducted over Pennsylvania. All right, this is 50 years ago, and I just want to show you that it's on the record. So here's what I want to direct your attention to. Okay, several federal agencies support weather modification programs, period. There, the government is on record stating that they modify the weather. And this goes back many, many, many decades. This is just something that I pulled up and wanted to share with you. So major research programs, and this is 50 years ago, so you know that it's been accelerated. Why in the world would it go backwards? Here we go. It includes precipitation modification. Now, we don't know whether that means to reduce it or increase it. Fog and cloud modification, hail suppression, and lightning and hurricane modification. There you go. The name of my broadcast today is The Government Admits to Modifying and Manipulating and Controlling Hurricanes. And here you go. So I want to show you, here it is, lightning modification, hurricane modification. Now this is 50 years ago, so the numbers, probably are much larger these days. And there have been different agencies that have been involved. Here we go. Several, different federal agencies. The research I did previously said that it was the Department of the Navy, the Department of the Air Force, the General Electric, and that's what I want to show you next. That's not a federal agency, but it might as well be one because of all of the money and all of the research that it does for the government. It's basically like a quasi-government. Now, what I want to show you here, it says various methods are used to seed clouds from either the air or the ground. In aerial seeding, flares containing silver iodide, the most commonly used seeding material in the United States. They are ignited and dropped from a plane or propane generators, or they're attached to the wings of a plane. Now, my lovely YouTube buddy here that I want everybody to follow his channel, his name is John Graff, G-R-A-F. He is in the city of Long Beach, California. I've met him in person, and he does these incredible footage that he gets right from his camera. So there's nothing that's manipulated, and he will show you what is being spewed from these planes. So it says that Propane generators attached to the wings of a plane are used to burn acetone with silver iodide to produce nuclei which are delivered at controlled rates into the clouds. Now, I'm not going to get too technical, but the point I wanted to make is that the government does admit to manipulating weather, including hurricanes. And then it goes on with the cost, and here we go. The Air Force officials and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So this is... And I will have a link, I'll drop a link for you in the description box if you would like to read this document. I just want you to see it. Now, the other thing I want to show you is, and I will put this for you as well, the history of Project Cirrus. All right. This is from General Electric. I will have this linked for you below as well. This is just a starting point, friends. This is going to be the aerial view. All right, I'm not doing the deep dive right now because, as I say, a lot of my research I lost because my computer shut itself down 3 times. I tried to restart, and that's why I was a little bit delayed for the timing on the broadcast. So let's just take a look at this as an introductory video to establish the fact that, yes, indeed, the government is capable of affecting these hurricanes. It was very strange. The pattern of Ian and the way that it was steered, and it's not the only one. There was one called Hurricane Betsy. In fact, let me do that first. Hurricane Betsy. All right. Hurricane Betsy was an intense and destructive tropical cyclone that brought widespread damage to areas of Florida and the central United States Gulf Coast in September of 1965. Now, look at this. The storm's erratic nature, meaning it did not follow what typical hurricanes had done before. So, and it also says it was the first tropical cyclone in the Atlantic basin to accrue at least $1 billion in damage in 1965. All right, that is nearly 60 years ago. And this is just a few years after they had started doing all of this hurricane manipulation. Now, they never admitted to manipulating Betsy. By they, I mean the government, but you know, what do they admit to? But I think it's very, very interesting. Now, something else I want to show you, which is really weird. Look at this picture. I've seen more and more recently that images have been manipulated to make it look as though the Earth is in the shape of a globe. And I also noticed on my phone, has anybody noticed that? When I do my navigation on my phone, or even on a maps, I should say maps on the computer, it used to be flat and now it makes it look like it's a globe, like the globe was moving. They are never going to stop with this mind manipulation. So Betsy was the first strange hurricane with erratic behavior that didn't follow typical hurricane, the way that hurricanes develop. So I wanted to show that to you. Now we'll go back to the Project Cirrus, and I will link for you below. This is General Electric, and I am going to direct you. We're going to hop on over to page 70, but first, because that's where they're talking about hurricanes. Here we go. History of Project Cirrus. This went on from 1947 to 1952. Project Cirrus, initiated in 1947 under this contract from the government, was established to cover research study of cloud particles and cloud modifications. It continued through the life of several government contracts ending in 1952. Now, there have been many additional contracts, but this is something that came to my attention as one of the first visible contracts. So think again, 1952, how many years is that? Is that 60, 70, 18, is that 70 years ago? Yeah, 70 years ago. So we know that they have accelerated since then. I'm going to leave this for you because I'm going to dig in myself. I want to learn all about the gas masks and the smoke generators and nucleation. And look at this, Vonnegut's early work. This is actually the writer Kurt Vonnegut's brother was the researcher of all of this. I find that very strange as well. I should make myself a note to do a video about Vonnegut because I think he probably was a government agent designed to write books that would manipulate the culture as well. Have to dig into that. I'll make myself a note. Langmuir is one of the first scientists that he was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. You know what that doesn't mean very much. And I don't know if it was a Peace Prize or just maybe a Nobel Prize in Science. I might have misspoken. But he was one of the first people to do all of the cloud seeding and, again, probably a government agent. But here's what I want to show you. So they talk all about ground operations, weather station, dry ice dispenser, silver iodide generators, cloud meter. Here's what I want to show you. We're going to scroll down to number 7. And that is, number 8, hurricanes and forest fires. They're admitting that they manipulate hurricanes and forest fires. And I'm going to not talk about forest fires today. We're going to talk about the hurricanes. And I'm going to hop right on over to page 70 because here, actually, maybe I need to go back one page. Oh, see, my computer is freezing again, friends. Well, let me do this. I'm going to leave this PDF for you, and you can dig in as well. Here we go. It talks about the seeding, and there's that guy Langmuir again, and how they will fly planes into the hurricane or around the hurricane. Here we go. The storm consisted of an eye approximately 30 miles in diameter, surrounded by a thick wall of clouds extending from about 800 feet up into the Cirrus, overcast at 20,000 feet. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is, which storm was this? Okay, it was planned to study a young storm as soon as possible after it had assumed the form of a hurricane. All right. Let's go on. Okay. After a brief reconnaissance flight around the outer wall, the decision was made to seed a track over the uppermost cloud shelf and at a distance from the center sufficient to permit the control aircraft to fly contact 5,000 feet above the seeding aircraft. So, friends, this requires a little bit deeper digging, and I plan to do so, but I wanted to establish for you and answer the question that was on everybody's mind who was emailing me. Yes, indeed, the government does manipulate these hurricanes. So here is an example of that. They're talking right about it, exactly what they do. This is a whole description of seeding it, and here we go. I'm not sure if this one actually, if their first test had any of the results that they wanted, but it is to establish that the government does indeed manipulate the weather. It's on record saying that it does. There are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of patents on weather manipulation. So these are hard facts, and I want to bring you more information. What I would like to do is have a follow-up video where I want to talk to you specifically, and not so much reporting, but I want to interact with you in a live stream. And I want to tell you about my experience in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. And then I want to hear from you about storms that you have been in. And specifically, I would like to know, have you evacuated? Do you evacuate? Do you ride out the storm? Are you in the path of the storm now if you are on the East Coast? I've never been in a hurricane. I'm here in California, so we don't have that. We have the fires, which they just admitted as well that they manipulate. So you know and I know that the evildoers are after us from every angle. But the good news is this. People will say, Peggy, what in the world can I do? Well, you want to be prepared as much as possible. Obviously, in the case of fires and hurricanes, when things are devastated, all of your extra food and water is going to be decimated as well. So it's a good idea to have a place that you can go, to have people that you can connect with, to always have a plan B, and always, always, always have some type of plan that you will be able to follow with your loved ones, so they'll know how to contact you. You may have a safe haven that you're going to be in contact if you are evacuating, and it goes without saying to pray. And I pray for all of you, for your protection, for your courage, for your confidence, for moving ahead through all of this. And I also, another C, we've got courage and confidence and community. It struck me today that the more you are in community with like-minded people, the better you will be able to ride out these storms. Some people find that in churches, some people find that in social groups, or exercise groups, or bonsai groups, or dancing groups, or whatever the case may be. But find your community, because that is what's going to get you through this. All right, everybody, I'm going to hop off. I'll take a look at your comments, and then join me in just a moment, because I want to have this discussion about the nuts and bolts of these disasters, and have you been through them? What has happened, and where do we go from here? All right, friends, thanks for being on board. I hope that my technology will be on board, and I look forward to seeing you in just a few moments in the very next broadcast.